Ladies and gentlemen, make a promise not to be unkind, but to be wise, to be fair, not just nice, to be kind, but never at the cost of your own dignity. Because the moment you choose yourself, you will see you were never meant to be just kind. You were meant to be powerful. Stop being just kind. Start being strong. Kindness is often seen as a universal virtue, something we are taught to practice from a very young age. We hear phrases like, be kind to others, always help those in need, and kindness makes the world a better place. And while these statements hold truth, they also create an illusion that kindness must always come before everything else, even before our own well-being. This is where the misconception of kindness begins. Many people grow up believing that to be kind means to be self-sacrificing, always giving, and never expecting anything in return. They believe that true kindness means never saying no, never setting boundaries, and never putting themselves first. This misunderstanding leads to a dangerous pattern where kindness is mistaken for submission, and generosity turns into an obligation rather than a choice. Imagine a person who always says yes to every request, whether it is from friends, family, or colleagues. At first, they are praised for being helpful, for always being there. But over time, people stop appreciating their efforts. Instead, their kindness becomes an expectation. The moment they refuse, even once, they are met with disappointment, frustration, or even guilt-tripping. This is because they have unknowingly set a precedent. They have shown people that their kindness has no limits, and so others begin to take advantage of it. Kindness should not mean losing oneself for the sake of others. It is not about ignoring your own needs just to ensure that others are comfortable. True kindness is not about pleasing everyone. It is about being compassionate while also respecting yourself. But society often glorifies self-sacrifice, making people feel guilty for putting themselves first. This is why so many individuals, especially those who are naturally empathetic, fall into the trap of overextending themselves. Another problem with the misconception of kindness is that it often leads to emotional exhaustion. When a person constantly prioritizes others, they eventually feel drained, unappreciated, and sometimes even resentful. They start to feel invisible, as if their kindness is expected rather than valued. This emotional burden can lead to stress, anxiety, and even a loss of self-identity. Who are you when you are only defined by how much you give to others? The most dangerous aspect of this misconception is that it creates a cycle of dependency. When people always rely on one kind-hearted person to fix everything, to listen, to support, and to adjust, they stop taking responsibility for themselves. The person who is always being kind becomes a crutch for others, and in the process, they lose their own balance. Kindness should never be about enduring mistreatment. There is a difference between being kind and being taken advantage of. There is a difference between helping others and letting them exploit your generosity. The moment kindness starts to feel like an obligation rather than a choice, it loses its true meaning. It is important to redefine what kindness really means. True kindness is about balance. It is about helping others without losing yourself. It is about offering support but also setting limits. It is about understanding that saying no does not make you a bad person. It makes you a person who values their time, energy, and self-respect. Real kindness begins with self-awareness. It means understanding that you cannot pour from an empty cup. If you are constantly giving without refilling your own emotional and mental reserves, you will eventually have nothing left to offer, not even to yourself. Self-care is not selfish, it is necessary. The next time someone asks for your time, your help, or your emotional energy, pause and ask yourself, am I doing this because I truly want to, or because I feel obligated to? If the answer is the latter, then it is time to reconsider your approach to kindness. Because kindness should never come at the cost of your own well-being. It should be a choice, not a burden. And most importantly, it should begin with you. People-pleasing is often disguised as kindness, It starts with small acts, agreeing to do a favor even when it inconveniences you, pretending to be okay when you are not, or avoiding conflict just to keep the peace. At first, it feels good. Making others happy gives a sense of purpose. But over time, the need to please everyone becomes exhausting. You begin to lose yourself in the process, constantly adjusting your actions, words, and decisions based on what others expect from you rather than what you truly want. The root of people-pleasing lies in the deep fear of rejection or disapproval. Many people, consciously or unconsciously, seek validation from others to feel worthy. They believe that if they are always agreeable, always accommodating, and always putting others first, they will be loved and accepted. But the painful truth is that no matter how much you do for others, it will never be enough. There will always be more expectations, more demands, and more people who take your kindness for granted. One of the biggest dangers of people-pleasing is that it erodes individuality. When you constantly adjust yourself to fit what others want, you stop being your true self. You silence your own thoughts and desires, fearing they might upset someone. You agree to things you do not believe in just to avoid conflict. You apologize even when you are not at fault just to maintain peace. Over time, this habit of suppressing your own needs creates an inner emptiness, a feeling that you no longer know who you are outside of your role in serving others. Another issue with people-pleasing is that it attracts the wrong kind of people. When you are always available, always saying yes, and always prioritizing others over yourself, you unknowingly send a message that your time and energy are not valuable. As a result, people start expecting you to always comply. They begin to see your kindness as something they are entitled to, rather than something you willingly give. And the worst part? When you finally set a boundary or say no, these same people may react with anger, disappointment, or guilt-tripping. They are not upset because you said no. They are upset because they can no longer take advantage of your willingness to always say yes. Being too eager to please can also prevent personal growth. When you live your life according to the expectations of others, you never truly explore what makes you happy. You may find yourself in situations, jobs, or relationships that do not fulfill you, simply because you did not want to disappoint someone. You hesitate to take risks, make bold choices, or follow your own dreams because you're too focused on what others might think. No matter how much you try to please everyone, there will always be people who are dissatisfied. It is impossible to meet every expectation, to be liked by everyone, or to make everyone happy without losing yourself in the process. The more you try, the more you realize that people's opinions are ever-changing, and their approval is temporary. Real happiness comes from authenticity. It comes from being true to yourself, making choices that align with your values, and surrounding yourself with people who respect you, not just for what you do for them, but for who you truly are. The moment you stop trying to please everyone, you will notice a shift. The wrong people will leave, but the right ones will stay. You will feel lighter, freer, and more in control of your life. Ask yourself, are you being kind? Or are you just afraid of disappointing others? Are you helping because you genuinely want to, or because you feel obligated to? It is time to stop living for others and start living for yourself. Because the moment you stop people-pleasing, you will realize that the only approval you ever truly needed was your own. Setting boundaries is one of the most important yet misunderstood aspects of life. Many people believe that saying no is rude, that distancing themselves from certain individuals is selfish, and that prioritizing their own needs makes them unkind. But the reality is quite the opposite. Boundaries are not barriers, they are guidelines that help protect your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. They are a way of defining what is acceptable and what is not in your relationships, your work, and your personal life. Without boundaries, you become vulnerable to exhaustion, manipulation, and emotional harm. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with setting boundaries is the fear of being judged. They worry that saying no will make them seem mean, unhelpful, or inconsiderate. They fear losing relationships or disappointing others. But what they fail to realize is that the people who truly respect and care about them will also respect their boundaries. The only ones who get upset when you set boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. Boundaries are necessary because they teach others how to treat you. If you are always available, people assume you have no limits. If you always say yes, people stop asking if you are okay with it. They simply expect it. If you never express your needs, people assume you have none. Over time, this leads to frustration and resentment because you realize that while you are constantly giving, no one is giving back to you in the same way. But the truth is, you cannot blame others for overstepping your boundaries if you never clearly established them in the first place. A lack of boundaries does not just affect your personal relationships, it also affects your mental health. Constantly saying yes when you want to say no leads to stress, anxiety, and burnout. It creates a cycle where you feel overwhelmed but unable to express it. You push yourself beyond your limits, thinking you have to be strong, that you have to be there for everyone, that you cannot afford to let anyone down. But in doing so, you let yourself down. You lose your peace, your energy, and sometimes even your sense of self. Boundaries are not just about saying no, they are also about knowing when to walk away. There are people in life who will only take from you, who will never reciprocate the energy, love, or respect you give. No matter how much you do for them, it will never be enough. They will continue to push your limits, demand more, and make you feel guilty for wanting something in return. In these situations, walking away is not cruelty, it is self-respect. Setting boundaries also helps you form healthier and more meaningful connections. When you clearly express what you can and cannot accept, you attract people who genuinely appreciate and respect you. You stop wasting energy on relationships that drain you and instead invest in those that uplift you. You create space for mutual respect, understanding, and real emotional connection, rather than one-sided expectations. Some people believe that setting boundaries will push others away, but in reality, it does the opposite. It strengthens your relationships with the right people. It allows you to give from a place of love rather than obligation. When you are not constantly exhausted from overextending yourself, you can be more present, more supportive, and more genuinely caring. If you have ever felt guilty for setting boundaries, remind yourself of this. You are not responsible for how others react to your limits. You do not owe anyone constant availability, unlimited emotional support, or unquestioned obedience. You are allowed to prioritize yourself, your well-being, and your peace. Because at the end of the day, real kindness is not about sacrificing yourself for others. It is about finding a balance between giving to the world and keeping enough for yourself. Self-respect is the foundation of every meaningful relationship, decision, and boundary you set in life. It is not arrogance, nor is it selfishness. It is an understanding of your own worth and refusing to let anyone diminish it. The problem is that many people confuse self-respect with being difficult, aggressive, or unkind. They think that prioritizing themselves means they are not being considerate of others. But the truth is, without self-respect, kindness becomes an obligation, love turns into dependency, and generosity loses its meaning. Many people grow up believing that they must always put others first to be seen as good, lovable, and valuable. They are taught that sacrificing their needs for others is noble, and while being considerate and caring are important traits, they should never come at the cost of losing yourself. True kindness does not require self-abandonment. If you constantly place others above yourself, you send a message not just to the world but to your own heart that your needs, feelings, and opinions do not matter. Self-respect is not just about demanding respect from others. It starts with how you treat yourself. If you allow people to walk all over you, it is not because they are stronger. It is because you have not set the boundaries to protect yourself. If you constantly seek approval from others, it is because you have not yet learned to validate yourself. When you do not respect yourself, you become dependent on external validation, and that is one of the most dangerous places to be. Because the moment that validation is taken away, you feel lost, unworthy, and invisible. One of the clearest signs of self-respect is the ability to say no without guilt. Many people struggle with this because they fear disappointing others. But what about disappointing yourself? Every time you say yes when you really want to say no, you are betraying yourself. You are teaching yourself that other people's comfort is more important than your own. But the truth is, no one else will prioritize you if you do not do it first. Another key part of self-respect is refusing to accept less than what you deserve. Whether in relationships, friendships, or professional settings, you set the standard for how others treat you. If you tolerate disrespect, it will continue. If you allow yourself to be undervalued, it will happen again. People treat you based on what you allow. If you do not demand respect, the world will not hand it to you. It is something you must claim for yourself. There is a huge difference between being nice and being respected. Many people focus so much on being liked that they forget to be respected, but respect lasts longer than likability. People might appreciate your kindness, but they will value you more when they see that you stand up for yourself. The ones who truly care about you will respect your choices, your boundaries, and your worth. The ones who get upset when you stand up for yourself are the ones who benefited from you staying silent. Self-respect also means walking away from situations and people who do not align with your values. It is not about holding grudges or being bitter. It is about recognizing when a space no longer serves you and having the courage to leave. Not everyone deserves access to you. Your time, energy, and love are precious, and they should not be given freely to those who do not appreciate them. When you develop self-respect, your entire world changes. You stop chasing people who do not see your worth. You stop feeling the need to prove yourself to everyone. You stop tolerating relationships, jobs, and situations that drain you. Instead, you start making choices that align with your happiness, your peace, and your goals. The most important thing to understand is this: self-respect is not something you ask for. It is something you show through your actions. It is in the way you set boundaries, the way you carry yourself, the way you refuse to accept less than what you deserve. And when you start respecting yourself, the world has no choice but to follow. Many people grow up believing that kindness should be the foundation of every interaction. We are taught to be polite, to be accommodating, and to avoid conflict at all costs. While kindness is an important value, it becomes a problem when it blinds us to reality. Life is not about being endlessly agreeable. It is about being fair, about standing up for what is right, and about ensuring that our kindness does not turn into weakness. This is why it is important to choose fairness over blind kindness. Being kind without considering fairness often leads to imbalance. Imagine a workplace where one employee is always willing to take on extra tasks while others do the bare minimum. At first, this person is praised for their hard work, but over time, their workload increases while others continue to do less. Their kindness is no longer seen as generosity, but as an expectation. Eventually, they become exhausted, unappreciated, and frustrated. What started as an act of kindness turned into an unfair burden. This is what happens when kindness is given without boundaries. It creates an environment where some people take advantage while others suffer in silence. On the other hand, ensures balance. It does not mean being rude or unkind. It means recognizing when a situation is unjust and having the courage to address it. If that same employee were to set boundaries and say, "I can only take on this much work," they would still be a good team player, but they would also ensure they are treated with respect. Choosing fairness means understanding that kindness should not come at the cost of your well-being. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that kindness means always saying yes. But true kindness is not about pleasing everyone. It is about doing what is right. Sometimes the right thing to do is to say no. Sometimes the right thing to do is to speak up when something is unfair. Sometimes the right thing to do is to stop supporting people who take advantage of your generosity. When you choose fairness over blind kindness, you make decisions that are not just good for others, but also good for yourself. Fairness is also important in relationships. Many people stay in friendships, partnerships, or even family dynamics where they are constantly giving while the other person is only taking. They convince themselves that being kind means enduring mistreatment, that love means always being available, and that loyalty means never setting limits. But love and kindness should never be one-sided. A healthy relationship is built on mutual respect, where both people give and receive. If you find yourself always being the one to adjust, to compromise, and to sacrifice, then you are not in a fair relationship. You are in a situation where your kindness is being exploited. Fairness also plays a role in how we treat ourselves. Many people are kind to others but extremely harsh on themselves. They forgive others easily but struggle to forgive themselves. They encourage their friends but constantly criticize their own abilities. This imbalance is a form of self-neglect. If you are willing to be kind to others, you must also be willing to be kind to yourself. Self-compassion is a crucial part of fairness. It means recognizing your own worth, allowing yourself to rest, and understanding that you deserve the same patience and understanding that you offer to others. Choosing fairness over blind kindness does not mean you stop being compassionate. It simply means that your kindness has limits. It means that you recognize your own needs and do not ignore them just to make others comfortable. It means that you help others when you can, but not at the expense of your own well-being. The world does not just need more nice people. It needs people who are strong enough to stand for what is right. It needs people who are not afraid to set boundaries, who are willing to demand fairness, and who understand that true kindness is not about self-sacrifice, but about balance. Be kind, but never at the cost of fairness. Be fair, and kindness will follow in the right way. There is a common belief that being kind will always result in kindness being returned. We are taught that if we treat others well, they will treat us well in return. While this may be true in some cases, the reality is often very different. The truth is, not everyone will appreciate your kindness. Some will see it as a weakness, some will take it for granted, and others will even use it against you. This is why it is crucial to recognize that kindness, while important, must be given wisely. It should never be offered at the expense of your dignity, your self-respect, or your peace. One of the hardest lessons in life is realizing that not everyone has good intentions. Some people will take advantage of your generosity, knowing that you will always say yes. They will manipulate your good nature to serve their own interests without any concern for how it affects you. You may go out of your way to help them, support them, or be there for them in times of need, but the moment you require the same in return, they disappear. This is not because you are not deserving of kindness, but because some people only stay in your life for what they can gain from you. The problem arises when you continue to give kindness to those who do not appreciate it. Many people fall into the trap of believing that if they just give a little more, if they just try a little harder, then eventually others will value their efforts. But that is not how it works. If someone does not appreciate you now, they will not appreciate you more just because you continue to give. In fact, the more you give without receiving basic respect in return, the more they will take you for granted. Being kind does not mean tolerating disrespect. Too often, people allow themselves to be mistreated in the name of kindness. They endure rude behavior, broken promises, and emotional neglect because they do not want to seem harsh or unkind. But real kindness is not about allowing yourself to be used. It is about knowing when to walk away. It is about recognizing when your kindness is no longer making a difference and when it is only enabling others to treat you poorly. Kindness should be a choice, not an obligation. You should be kind because it aligns with your values, not because you feel pressured to meet the expectations of others. The moment kindness becomes something you feel forced to give, it is no longer genuine. It is a burden. And when kindness becomes a burden, it drains you rather than fulfills you. It is also important to understand that not everyone deserves your kindness in the same way. There is a difference between being kind and being naive. Being kind means treating people with respect and compassion, but being naive means ignoring the reality that some people will never change, no matter how much kindness you show them. It is okay to help others, but it is not okay to sacrifice your well-being for those who do not value you. Self-respect must always come before kindness. If being kind requires you to betray your own needs, your own peace, or your own dignity, then it is no longer kindness. It is self-abandonment. The people who truly deserve your kindness will never demand that you compromise yourself to make them happy. They will appreciate your efforts, respect your boundaries, and reciprocate the care you show them. Kindness is a beautiful quality, but only when it is given with wisdom. Not everyone will appreciate your kindness, and that is okay. The right people will. Your job is not to prove your worth to those who do not see it. It is to protect your kindness from being wasted on those who do not deserve it. Be kind, but do not be blind. Give kindness, but never at the cost of your own self-respect. Kindness is a virtue, but it should never come at the cost of your self-respect, your peace, or your well-being. Life is not about constantly pleasing others, sacrificing your happiness, or tolerating disrespect in the name of being good. True kindness is not about losing yourself for the sake of others. It is about finding a balance between giving and protecting your own worth.